And go.
Hey, it's Jerry coming to you today from the Rythmia Life Advancement Center in Guanacaste, Costa Rica on another beautiful day. What is Rythmia? Rythmia is a life advancement center that uses a bunch of different modalities to bring about a soul merger. Those modalities include ayahuasca, 4 nights of ayahuasca, metaphysical teachings from world-known thought leaders, farm-to-table organic food, the cleanse, breath work, meditation, class work, to bring about this amazing change. How do we know that it's amazing? Because to date, over 17,000 people have been through these doors. And 98.85% of those people, when they leave, check off that they had a life-changing miracle during their stay. More importantly, at the 6-month mark, 90.22% of them say that this was the week that changed their life, and that miracle is still working in their life. It's just an amazing, amazing place. And because it's so amazing, many high-profile people have come here, and a lot of them have had such an amazing experience that they asked to be board members at Rythmia. Who are they? Jack Canfield, author of Chicken Soup of the Soul series, 50 million seller. Martin Luther King's son, Martin. Kelly Slater, the greatest surfer of all time. Cesar Millan, the dog whisperer. Ron White, the comedian. Tony Coe, the cosmetics entrepreneur. Earl Koski, the food entrepreneur. All have decided to give their names to Rythmia, to be on this board, to help other people experience this great thing. Frank Biden, Joe Biden's brother, on the board. All of these people have come here to try to make this thing world known, because what happens here is amazing. This week we have Taita, Juanito, Chindon. I think there's 90 people here this week, all having ceremony, right? And going through this program. And I'm really lucky because I get to see people who've gone through it year after year and come back. And the changes it makes in their lives is remarkable, to say the least. Remarkable. Is it easy? Nope. It's the single hardest week's work you will ever do in your life. It's not free. It's really hard. It's really worth it, and you're forever changed. At least 98.85% of those who come through the doors are forever changed. Changed forever. It's a real, it's a change point in your life. Now, today I want to talk about some of these things. Yes. So number one, I want to point out that it's a very important day in the history of the world, right? Because it's election day in the United States. And the thing that I would like to remind you of is everything is unfolding in a grand design that we may or may not be aware of. So having tolerance for each other is the most part of this day. That if we can learn tolerance of each other in this day, it would be a great lesson to learn. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about this broadcast, which is post-merger action items. So what happens at Rythmia is the overwhelming vast majority of times, people walk away with a soul merger or a soul reclamation. It's called in a different culture. So this merger that happens brings us a new, fresh perspective. And the first thing that the vast majority of us want to do after this merger is we realize that this life is not owed to us, that God doesn't owe us anything. And in fact, we owe God. We owe everything that is God, all people, everything we owe something to in exchange for having this beautiful life on this garden of a planet. We get it. So we want to give back. That's the first thing. How do we give back? We decide that in our soul imprint, we were given this vision of becoming something greater and contributing so that we can become a beneficial presence on the planet. That's the truth of what happens after this thing. Now, once that happens, the hard work starts. Because this thing of becoming a beneficial presence, for me, it was that I was to bring about the Rythmia Life Advancement Center and all of its forms and its spin-offs and shoot-offs, and bring that to the world. That was what the vision was for me. For other people, they're to become the best investment banker, the most loving divorce attorney, the whatever the thing is where they can improve and be a beneficial presence on the planet, the best food service company, the best string of restaurants, the best church, the best civic center, the best whatever their thing, the best mother, father, son or daughter, whatever their thing is, where they can become the best beneficial presence on the planet. That in turn now becomes the ceremony. The ceremony is the commitment et al. With everything and for the rest of my life, from now until the end of my breath, that I'm going to do this thing and contribute to it and make sure that it's a beneficial presence. Now, that thing, once you do that, whether it's playing a guitar or whatever it is that you're going to do to bring that about to the people whose lives you touch, I can tell you the bigger your vision is, the harder it's going to be. The more in contrast it is to conventional thinking, the harder it's going to be. But the harder it's going to be and the more in contrast to conventional thinking, the more it's aligned with the light and the vibration of the universe, and the never-ending good of it, the more benefits it's going to bring. So, in a nutshell, once you decide to do this, it's for the rest of your life. It's going to be harder than anything you've ever done. It's going to bear more fruit than you could ever imagine, and it's going to take longer than you could ever conceive. It is. So what does that mean? Usually it's a 10-year chunk of time. You're going to be a 10-year overnight sensation, and that's hard. Now, I want to talk about these things. There are things that happen on the way to this that are the ceremony of life. What are those things? Enormous setbacks. Setbacks in terms of time. Setbacks in terms of disaster. Setbacks in terms of internal struggles. Setback after setback after setback after setback, and you have to be constructed with an adamant, with a certainty that drives you, a grit that drives you through all of that, and that is your hero's journey. This is the thing, that is the adventure of this life, right? Is it easy? Absolutely, positively not. One of my friends who I forgot to mention on the board is Michael Bernard Beckwith, who was the founder of the Agape Spiritual Center, co-author of the book, The Secret. A wonderful, wonderful, wonderful guy. And he always told me, the bigger the vision, the harder the journey. So all of this is your hero's journey. So this isn't a way to get things on the cheap or to make your life easier it's none of that. This is the real beauty, the real journey. This is my hero's journey. This is what I'm going to do. And it is a war. It is. It's a never-ending war. Now, it's going to get harder before it gets easier. Always. I'm 10 years into this thing now, and it's the hardest 10 years of work I've ever had in my life. And I'm a 61-year-old guy. But because I listened to how it told me to do it. I'm going to tell you, I am stronger right now than I was at the age of 30. I'm physically stronger. I'm mentally stronger. I'm healthier. I'm more clear and more awake. And I have to tell you something. I was lucky in life. I was a very good manifester. You're probably saying, well, why is this guy even talking? Well, when I was a kid, I was a high school dropout. I never graduated high school. And in my 20s, I managed to save $1 million. That's when $1 million was a lot of money. In my 30s, I took a company public, and I had a net worth of about $140 million. And that company eventually went bankrupt. And I started another company at 38 that I sold at 43 for about 90 million in cash. So I was a great manifester, but now I'm on this becoming a beneficial presence journey that's going to last me for the rest of my life, that all of those previous things prepared me for. I didn't know it at the time. I didn't know what I was being prepped for, but just like you, all of your history was preparatory for what's about to occur to you when you have this merger. If you've been to Rythmia before and you've already had it, everything up until that day, the before, was in order to give you this thing, that your way of becoming a beneficial presence, and all the tools you will need for your hero's journey. What I can tell you, every single thing you need for that journey is in your mochila. It's in your bag. You might not know it, but your history has put it there. So you have everything you need to make the journey. Now, I want to talk about starting and stopping. So the thing that there are these promises that you need to make yourself in order to be able to take you on this journey through its totality. And those promises keep you in check during the hardest times of the journey. And the hardest times are usually in the first 7 years. Not necessarily year 1. It might be year 3, year 4, year 5, year 6, or 7, because it gets harder before it gets easier. But there's these things that are practices and promises that we make to ourselves to get us through that. Because if you take a look at the huge successes, they've been done by an unrealistic human effort. So we're going to ask you to make an unrealistic human effort. It's easier to sit on the couch than it is to get up and work out. It's easier to want to be given to instead of giving. This effort that it takes to do this thing, to become this beneficial presence, is an all-consuming effort. It's going to ask everything that you have in your tank. It's going to ask you to give. So this is the real. This is it. So there's these series of promises and things we must do in order to keep us from quitting and starting something new. You see, because the most frustrating times are always in startup. And if you see someone who who starts, then quits, then starts something new, then quits and starts something new, then quits and starts something new and new and new. They're always in startup and they're never in mastery. Because mastery is attained. There's a 15,000 hour theory, but usually the 10-year theory of constant work is usually when the mastery occurs. So you can't get to mastery if you're continually starting and stopping and starting and stopping and starting and stopping. I have a son in the music business, and one of the red flags of the music business, artists to stay away for, are artists who start and immediately have a hit. It's a very, 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 very low percentage of those that continue on. Artists that go for a long time without commercial success are the best bets. That's hence the Rolling Stones, Aerosmith, all these older bands that had a real hard start are the best bets. So the same thing with us. So don't think that your tragedies and your setbacks are a reason to quit. They're actually a reason to stick, because in each time that we have one of these micro failures or massive failures, we picked up something for our mochila for the next fight. So the real thing here, and this is why is the soul merger so important? The soul merger is so important because it will lead you to pick the way in which you want to become a beneficial presence on the planet from a centered and merged place. So knowing that this stuff gets really hard going forward, if we're not picking it from a centered and merged place, we'll quit. What do I mean by that? If I am becoming a doctor because my mother wanted me to become a doctor, most likely when things really get hard, I'll quit. And if not, and if I should grind through and succeed, I'm going to find unhappiness. So it has to be from a very centered place. What does a very centered place from? People say, oh, does that mean that something I have the ability for? Absolutely not. Usually not. The best basketball player that I've ever seen in my life is Michael Jordan. He didn't make his high school basketball team. So there wasn't a ton of, did you ever see him play baseball? There wasn't a ton of natural, it was there, but it wasn't on the top. So the best guitarist, the best pianist, the best usually had to work at becoming that. So it's not what's apparent to you. It's not what you're naturally good at. It's at what rings your heart true. It's what rings your heart true. And you will know that in your quietest moments, because if it didn't bring money, if it didn't bring fame or notoriety, would you do it? And if the answer is yes, you're on it. It's the thing you would do if nobody was looking. It's the thing that excites you. That's the thing. Well, what if I'm no good at it? So what? Nobody was ever good at something they just started. So what? This is all something that gets molded out of hard work and failure. That's, you become this thing. You're not this thing. You become this thing. And here's the interesting part. On that road of getting harder before it gets easier, at some point after mastery comes flow. And flow is when you do it second nature. If you want to see flow, watch Martin Luther King make a speech, or watch Michael Bernard Beckwith watch his sermon on Sunday, or watch Tiger Woods hit a golf ball in his prime, or Michael Jordan dunk in his prime, or watch some of these things, or just look at a Picasso, and you'll see what flow looks like. But flow is not obtained on the front end. It's obtained on the back end after mastery. That's what I wanted to leave you with today. I want to make sure, hey, look at my name again, Jerry Powell. The place is called the Rythmia Life Advancement Center. My books are called Stuff the Moon Said, because I can't curse on here, and Truth Economics, which are all about the things I'm talking about today. Please come and visit us. Please come here. I want to tell you something. This is not something that you should judge by whether I can afford to do. It should be something that you judge as, can you afford not to do this? Come here, experience this thing, and change the whole rest of your life. God keep you. God bless you. God hold you. We'll talk to you next week. Cheers.